Okay, welcome to all. We are going to learn Tractate Shabbos, page 27. The name of the chapter is Bameh Madlikin. And we ended off yesterday with the discussion of Tana Devei Rabbi Shmuel concerning a cloth measuring 3 by 3, is the case of all other garments. Minale, from where does Rabbi Shimon know that such a cloth is susceptible to tumah? A cloth of 3 by 3, how does Rabbi Shimon know that it's susceptible to tumah? And the Gemara says, Nafka me'oi oveged. So the top of 27, Nafka me'oi veged, the law is derived from the verse or a garment. You didn't have to write o from the fact that it's written, I know that 3 by 3 cloth is susceptible to impurity. Tanya veged, it was taught in a Baisa scripture state in the passage of Sheretz Tuma, a garment. And li'alav veged, from this word I have a source only for a garment of wool or flax, similar to the specified garment in the Tzaras passage. In the Tzaras pasuk passage, how do I know about 3 by 3 that are a garment 3 by 3 that is also susceptible to tumah? So the Torah states, or a garment. The full pasuk, by the way, is in Leviticus 11:32, where it says, from the fact that it says oy, I know about 3 by 3 garment susceptible to tumah. That's the support to Rabbi Shimon. What Abaye is going to do with the elusive verse or a garment, he needs it to include a cloth measuring 3 by 3 finger breadth in the case of wool and flax. And wool or flax, dimitame vishrotzim, that it too becomes contaminated through contact with a carcass of any of the shrotzim specified in the Torah, creepy crawlers specified in the Torah. The Gemara now challenges Rava, going back to Rava, from where does he know this? That 3 by 3 in the case of wool and flax becomes contaminated through contact with the carcass, because he already uses the oy that 3 by 3 is susceptible to tumah. Rava, from where does he know the law that Abai just taught? Gali Rachmon, the merciful one revealed the tumah susceptibility of woolen and flaxen fabrics measuring 3 by 3 finger breadth with regard to tzaras affliction, to the leprosy afflictions. And similarly, if it applies to tzaras, the Ve'u Adin is the same law that would apply to shrotzim. Abaye, why does he reject that binyan of teaching? If it applies to Negoim, it applies to shrotzim. Applies to tzaras affliction, leprosy affliction, so it should also apply to shrotzim, to creepy crawlers. Why does Abai doesn't do the same? Because it's possible to refute as follows. Malu Negoim, what comparison can you make to the instructive case of tzaras affliction? When it comes to Negoim, which is especially stringent, for indeed even the warp and woof become contaminated with them. Comes to Negoim, to tzaras affliction. The case of Sheretz Tuma, however, doesn't have that potency. Hence, because it lacks this additional stringency, that it makes the woof and warp also tameh, because it lacks this additional stringency, We cannot derive from tzaras tuma that sheretz tuma likewise attaches to woolen and flaxen cloth, measuring 3 by 3 finger breadth. Veidoch, and the other sage, Rabbah, how then does he justify his binyan of teaching? Is if it would enter your mind. The tuma of tzaras affliction is more severe than sheretz tuma. If it enter your mind that the impurity of tzaras is more severe than sheretz tuma, the creepy crawler tuma. Let the merciful write one with regard to shrotzim, that woolen or flaxen cloth measuring 3 by 3 finger breadth is susceptible to tuma, and let its susceptibility to the tuma of tzaras affliction then be derived from the shrotzim passage. If shrotzim is, if negoim chamire, if tzaras affliction is more severe, so the lichter rachmon gabe shrotzim veleisu negoim minayim. Let the merciful write with regard to shrotzim, and we will learn that we will learn negoim minayim from a kal v'chomer, that if shrotzim that are less severe are susceptible to tuma when it comes to 3 by 3, how much more so that negoim? Shrotzim are less severe, so how much more so that negoim are going to be under the same umbrella? They are also going to be susceptible to tuma. The Gemara says ve'idach, and the other one, Abaye, how does he respond to this argument, to the argument of Rava? Negoim mishrotzim lo yosu. Susceptibility to the tuma of tzaras affliction could not have been derived from the passions of sheretz tuma. Why? Because sheretz is unique. What is unique about a creepy crawler? That it indeed a carcass of sheretz only. What's so unique about sheretz? For indeed a carcass of sheretz, only the size of a lentil contaminates. The case of tzaras, however, lacks this potency, doesn't have that stringency, which precludes any inferring of laws from one to another. Hence the verse, or garment is needed to teach that a woolen or flaxen cloth of 3 by 3 finger breadth is susceptible to sheretz tuma.
So wait a minute, are we saying, okay, the tzaras tuma doesn't make the 3 by 3?
No, both of them make, but the question is how do you learn it? If one is more stringent than the other, the Gemara says, so learn it from kal v'chomer. Let's say negoim is more stringent, meaning tzaras. So we would say the opposite. We will say sheretz 3 by 3 is susceptible to tuma, and I would say if sheretz is susceptible, how much more so that negoim are susceptible. So the Gemara says no, because there's something unique about shrotzim. What's unique about sheretz? That it makes you tummy by the size of a lentil.
Okay.
Amar Abaye, I told the Rabbi Shmuel mapik meidoch. This Tana of Rabbi Shmuel Academy, who was quoted above, mapik meidoch, discards the holding of that other Tana. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel discards the holding of that other Tana of Rabbi Shmuel's Academy. The Tani de Rabbi Shmuel, for another sage of Rabbi Shmuel's Academy, taught Veged. What is Veged means? En li ela Veged tzemer ufishtim. En li ela Veged tzemer ufishtim. From this word alone, I have a source only for a garment of wool or flax, similar to the specified garment in the tzaras passage. Menayin l'Rabbi tzemer gemelim. From where do I know to include the law of sheretz tuma susceptibility, a garment of camel's hair? Ve'tzemer onovim noitzu shel izim v'ashiroim v'akoloch v'asrikin, rabbit's hair, plucked goat's hair, regular silk, koloch silk, and corded silk, Talmud Lema oy veged. So the Torah states or a garment, wherein the word or includes all these other types of garments in the law of Sheretz Tuma susceptibility. As Abaye perceived the two Tanaic opinion emanating from Rabbi Shmuel's academy as diametrically opposed, Rava would narrow the difference. Rava Omar when it was stated in 26b that the first Tana of Rabbi Shmuel's academy does not hold that there is Sheretz Tuma susceptibility in the case of all other garments, Sholosh al Sholosh, the reference was to a cloth measuring 3 by 3 finger breadth. Sholosh Shloisha Isle, however, with regard to any type of fabric measuring 3 by 3 hand breadth, he does not hold that there is susceptibility to Sheretz Tuma. The Gemara challenges this representation of Rava's view. The Gemara says, it was Rava that says that regarding a cloth measuring 3 by 3 hand breadth, in the case of all other garments, Le Rabbi Shimon ben Lozo Islay, Rabbi Shimon ben Lozo holds that it is susceptible to Sheretz Tuma. Le Tanda Rabbi Shmuel Leislay, but the Tana Rabbi Shmuel academy hold that it is not susceptible to Tuma. This contradicts Rava's most recent interpretation of the first Tana's opinion. Hoda Rava Meir, Rava retracted from that earlier interpretation. Or we can say that it was Rav Papa stated the second interpretation of the opinion of the first Tana of Rabbi Shmuel's academy, and not Rava. Rav Papa Omar, Rav Papa said, Avkola Atuye Kilaim. When the first Tana concluded, so too in all other cases, only garments of wool and flax are meant. He intended only to derive the law for the case of forbidden mixtures. Shatnez. Kilayim beiduk ksiva bei. There is a specification of wool and flax fibers is explicitly written in another verse concerning forbidden mixtures. What does the pasuk says? Lo yisilbash tzemer ufishtim, lo yisilbash shatnez tzemer ufishtim yachdov. Deuteronomy 22b. 22 verse 11. Lo yisilbash shatnez tzemer ufishtim yachdov. You shall not wear combined fibers, shatnez, wool and linen together. There is no need for the first Tana to apply the wool and flax specification of the Tzaras passage to the case of shatnez. Without the first Tana's teaching, you might have thought to say that these words apply only when the garment is donned in the normal manner of wearing. Aval balo, but with regard to being covered with a garment of shatnez, now wearing it, you're just covering yourself like talis. Aval balo, with regard to being covered with a garment of shatnez, Kol trei mine osu, the combination of any of two different types of fibers is forbidden. Hence, it was necessary for the first Tana to teach that even in the case of covering, the shatnez prohibition involves only garment of wool and flax. But is it not derived via Kal Vachomer argument that the specification of Deuteronomy 22:11 applies to the case of covering as well? For we may reason as follows: since in the case of normal wearing, wherein one's entire body derives benefit from the mixture, Omar Semer Ufishtim Ein, you have said that the combination of wool and flax is indeed forbidden. But anything else is not. Alo, then in the case of more covering, where only a portion of the body derives enjoyment from the mixture, is it not all the more so that the prohibition is limited to garments of wool and flax? The unimpeachable Kal Vachomer argument renders the first Tana's teaching as understood by Rav Papa superfluous. Ela de Rav Papa bedusei Rather, of Papa's interpretation of the first Tana, the first Tana's teaching is a fiction. Where it says in 34, elsewhere, the Gemara uses the variant Berusa, outside view, which more delicately denotes that a sage opinion is mistaken. La'asuye tzitzis, he intended only to derive the law for the case of ritual fringes, tzitzis. Rav Nachman's interpretation is challenged. Tzitzis beida kisiv, the specification of a woolen or linen garment is explicitly written elsewhere. With regard to ritual fringes, with regard to tzitzis, for one pasuk states, Lo silbash shatnez tzemer ufishtim, shall not wear combined fibers, which is shatnez. Wool and linen, uchsiv gedilim tasaloch, and it is written regarding tzitzis, Deuteronomy 22:12. This following pasuk, gedilim tasaloch, it is written, you twisted threads you shall make for yourself. Now the juxtaposition between the two verses teaches that twisted threads, tzitzis, are to be made for only wool and linen garments. Hence, there is no need for the first Tana to apply the wool and flax specification of the tzaras passage to the case of tzitzis. Sakadaita chamina. Without the first Tana's teaching, you might have thought to say that we interpret the two consecutive verses not in the above manner. The Rava, how did Rava interpret this? The juxtaposition, Ksiv HaKonov, it is written in one verse that teaches about tzitzis of the corner, HaKonov. Book of Numbers, chapter 15, verse 38 states, in a pertinent part, they shall make for themselves tzitzis on the corners of their garments, and they shall place upon the tzitzis of the corner a thread of techelas. So, ksiva konov, it is written in one verse of the corner, min konov, which implies that the tzitzis must be made of the material of the corner. Uchsiv tzemer fishtim yachdov, and it is written tzemer fishtim yachdov, wool and linen together, which indicate the tzitzis of wool or flax are valid for any type of garment. Ha-keitzad, how can this be? Tzemer fishtim poitrin ben b'minam ben shalei b'minam. The seemingly contradictory interpretations are reconciled as follows. Wool and linen fringes satisfy the tzitzis obligation whether of a garment of their own type or of a garment not of their own type. Meaning other types of fringes, however, beminon poitrin, satisfy the obligation of a garment of their own type, Sheloi b'minon einon poitrin, but do not satisfy the obligation of garment not of their own type. So we are holding in 27b1 in the right column. The Gemara now concludes its defense of Rav Nachman's interpretation. Sal kodaitoch kederavo, you might have thought that we do not interpret the juxtaposition of wool and linen, twisted threads, to exempt all but woolen and linen garments from the tzitzis requirement. Rather, it is expounded in accordance with the teaching of Rava. Kamashmalan, it comes to teach us. The first Tana of Rabbi Shmuel Academy informs us that we should not interpret of the corner as Rava did, for the specification of wool and flax in the Tzaras passage is applied to the case of tzitzis to exempt all but woolen and linen garments from the tzitzis requirement. The Gemara again questioned the first Tana's teaching as interpreted by Rav Nachman. Amar Ravacha Brei de Rava le Ravashi, Ravacha, the son of Rava, said to Ravashi, Lesson of the Rabbi Shmuel, according to the Tana of the Academy of Rabbi Shmuel. What is unique about the subject of ritual contamination of Tuma? The Merabi Godim, where all other garments are included in the law of Tuma susceptibility. Dichtiv or beged, for it is written, or a garment, which is a scriptural inclusion, or a garment, including Hachanami, here also in the case of tzitzis, Leima leRabbi Shal Begodim asher techasebo. Let him say that scripture means to include all other garments in the tzitzis requirement from the extraneous phrase with which you cover yourself. So this comes to add the garment of a blind man. The extraneous phrase comes instead to include wool on linen, garment of a blind person. The Tanya, so it says you have to wear tzitzis. When you wear tzitzis, it says so you have to see it. You shall see it. Which implies that all woolen and linen garments require tzitzis with the exception of a night garment. You say that it implies with the exception of a night garment. Or is it not rather with the exception of a blind person's garment? When the pasuk states the superfluous and therefore inclusionary phrase with which you cover yourself, the obligation of a blind person's garments hereby stated, because he is also covering himself. So then do I preserve the exclusionary and you shall see it? The phrase teaches with the exception of a night garment. And why are you including the blind person but you are excluding a night garment? Why not the reverse? Exclude the blind person and include the night garment. I'm including the blind person's garment because other people can see it. But I'm excluding the night garment that others cannot see it. The Brisa teaches us that the inclusionary with which you cover yourself obligates the attachment of tzitzis to the wool or linen garment of a blind person, and not to every type of garment. But say instead that which you cover yourself comes to include all other garments. Why do you presume that it includes a blind man's garment? Holding in the right column in 27b2. It is logical that since the Torah is discussing wool and linen garments, it includes in the inclusionary term of the verse with which you cover yourself, a blind person's wool and linen garments. Would you say, however, that it is that in discussing wool and linen garments, it includes all other garments? Certainly, the first option is more logical. It is logical that since the Torah is discussing wool and linen garments, it includes in the inclusionary term of the verse with which you cover yourself, a blind person's wool and linen garments. Omar Abaye again comments on the Brisa cited above in 26b. Abaye says, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar and Simcha said actually one thing. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is which we stated in the Brisa. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar stated above that any substance extracted from a plant is valid for covering a sukkah. Whatever you're capable of extracting from a plant, you can use it for covering the sukkah, with the exception of flax. Why? Since he did not say with the exception of a flaxen garment, the implication is that he disqualifies even flaxen materials that has not yet attained the status of garment. This group includes unspun flax, such as that still in bundles, or spun threads of flax that have not been woven. In either case, the substance is disqualified for use as a sukkah covering because it is susceptible to tzaras tuma, even though it is not yet susceptible to sheretz tuma. Susceptible to tzaras, but not yet susceptible to sheretz tuma, this flax. So the Gemara says, Sumcho Seimer, that was Rabbi Shimon ben Lozo. Sumcho says, if one covered the sukkah with spun threads or flax, the covering is invalid. So we see they're really saying the same thing. Because such material is contaminated by tzaras affliction, even though it is not yet susceptible to tuma. From here we see that flax is metame benegoim, just like Rabbi Shimon ben Lozo says. What Rabbi Shimon ben Lozo said and what Sumcho said are both the same thing. Regarding your question, Reb David, flax is one thing and linen is something else. So the two different garments, if we put them together, that constitutes shatnez. Linen is one type and flax is another type. When I say they really said the same thing, is Rabbi Shimon ben Lozo and Sumcho said the same thing. What did they say? That if you use flax to cover the sukkah, your sukkah is not kosher. You can use any plant to cover anything that comes from plant. You can use to cover your sukkah, but not flax, because flax is susceptible to tumah. Kiman, according to whom does Abaye, is it clear, or let me know if it's clear to you? Kiman, according to whom does Abaye say that even unspun bundles of flax are susceptible to tzaras tumah? Ki hai tono detnan.
How do they know that the sukkah is has tumah in the skach of the flax?
No, he's telling you that if you would take flax to cover your sukkah, it's susceptible to tumah, and therefore it's not kosher. Tell you it's not a kosher material.
Okay, so you can only have the.
If you look at 26, he discusses it.
Okay.
But so in let me see. So the difference from wool and linen, I got you the exact explanation of it. It says flax is a plant. Flax is a plant, while linen is the fabric made from the fibers of the flax.
Okay.
Linen is the fabric made from the fibers of the flax. Of the flax plant obtained from its stem. You take it from the stem. Okay. So flax is the raw material, while linen is the fabrics that were made from the fibers of the flax.
So the raw flax, you probably could the plant is used by
flax fibers give linen.
Right. No, but I mean, once you start working with it, you can't use it. I got it.
So really, you can't. When the Torah says "semiru fishtim," when the Torah says wool and linen, that's the true mixture. When flax and linen, there's not a mixture. It's just one lead to the other. I mean, one ingredient would lead to the other.
Right.
I hope it's clear.
I got it.
So Omar Abaye. So Keman. So in the bottom it says Keman. According to whom does Abaye say that even unspun bundles of flax, it's still the raw materials, are susceptible to tzaras tumah?
Now you're looking for trouble.
Ki ai tono ditnan. According to this Tana, we learned in a Mishnah, Shesivo erev metame benegoy miyad. it says, all threads of warp and the woof become contaminated by tzaras afflictions immediately after spinning. Divrei Rabbi Meir. These are the words of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, Hashesi mishi shola, the woolen warp threads become contaminated from when they have been pulled out of the kettle in which they have been boiled to whiten them. Ve'erev miyad, and the woolen woof threads immediately after spinning. Ve'unin shel pishton mishi slabnu, and the bundles of unspun flax from when they have been bleached in an oven. This last statement by Rabbi Yehuda provides Tanaic support for Abai's interpretation of Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar ruling on flax, that even unspun fibers are susceptible to tzaras tumah. With that, we go to the next part of the Mishnah. The following Mishnah discusses, this is in 27b3, in the bottom of 27, Kol hayotzeh min ha'etz ein madlikin bo. Anything that comes from a tree may not be used as a wick to light the Shabbos lamp, elav pishtan, only flax, except for flax. So the following Mishnah discusses the susceptibility of wicks made of tree products for the Shabbos lamp. So kol hayotzeh min ha'etz, anything that comes from a tree may not be used as a wick to light the Shabbos lamp, ela pishtan, except for flax. V'chol hayotzeh min ha'etz, and anything that comes from a tree, eino metame tumas olim, does not become tomei with roof tuma when used as a roof over a corpse, ela pishtan, except for flax. So we see that pishtan, flax, has in a way something unique about it that is positive. What's positive? That you can use it to light. Kol hayotzeh min ha'etz, anything comes out of the tree, you're not allowed to use it for a week. And but on the other hand, anything comes out of the tree is not becoming tameh with a roof tuma, except from the flax, except from pishtan that is susceptible to tuma, and that's why we said before that it's not good for schach.
But yet the Kohen, if they're walking outside of a cemetery and the tree's this way, they're getting makabel tumah from the tree, no?
That's if the tree is connected to the ground.
Yeah, the tree is connected to the ground inside the cemetery, and the branch is hanging over the fence.
Here it says, any tree product used to construct a roof over a human corpse, will not become tameh. Just as the house in which a corpse lies does not become tameh, the object used as a roof therefore does not require immersion in a mikvah to be purified of tumah. And it says the law of a roof tumah, or tumas ohel, the tumah of a tent, is stated in Numbers 19:14.
Yeah.
As follows. The pasuk says, "Zois haTorah." This is the law. Odom kiyomus ba'oil, somebody that dies in a tent or under a roof. Whoever comes into this place and whoever comes out of this place becomes tameh. It mashivas yom. This is the law for a man who dies in a tent. All that comes into the tent and all that is within the tent shall be tameh 7 days. The pasuk teaches that people and utensils that shelter under a single roof, oil or tent, with a corpse become tameh. The tumah comes not from the roof itself, but from the corpse. It is merely transmitted by sharing a roof. The Torah further states regarding purification from the tumah, and a person who is toher shall take hyssop and dip it into the water that was mixed with the ashes of the parah adumah, and sprinkle it upon the tent and upon all the vessels and upon the people who were there to purify them. Since the Torah mandates purification Since the Torah mandates purification for the roof itself upon the tent, it is evident in addition to transmitting the corpse tuma to the object that shelter under it, the roof itself acquires tuma. So the Mishnah rules that of articles made of tree products, the only one that can acquire tuma in this manner is one made of flax. Any other tree product used as a roof over a corpse will not become tameh itself, although it will transmit tuma, the corpse tuma, to the object beneath it. And the Gemara will explain why the Mishnah differentiates between flax and other wood products. So there's a long discussion on this. Obviously, laws of tuma and tara are always extensive and elaborated, but this is the gist of it. The Gemara takes a note of the Mishnah's reference to flax as a tree product and inquires after its source. Menalan the fish tonikes. From where do we know that flax can be called a tree? As I said before, flax plant is in fact not a tree, but an herb. A plant with little or no woody tissue that dies at the end of the growing season. Therefore, unless flax is referred to as a tree somewhere in scripture, there is no need for the Mishnah to cite flax as an exception to the rule regarding tree products. So Omar Mazutra in 27b4, the Omar Kro, the Pasuk states that he also the story with Rachav, that she brought them up to the roof when Pinchas and Kolev were at her house, and hid them in the trees of flax, so that they were arranged upon the roof to dry. Since scripture refers to the stalks of flax as trees, the Mishnah is compelled, when stating a rule regarding tree products, to exclude flax. The Gemara states, and anything that comes from a tree, does not become tomei with roof tuma when used as a roof over a corpse. Ela fishton, except for flax. The Gemara inquires after the Mishnah source for this statement. Menalan, from where do we know that a roof made of flax can acquire roof tuma? Amar Bilozor Gomar oil. It is derived through a gezerah shava of the verse oil. It's a pasuk in Bamidbar in the book of Numbers, chapter 19, verse 14. Pasuk goes like this: Zois haTorah odom kiyomus ba'oil. One time oil, then again kol haboil ha'oil v'chol asher ba'oil itma shivas yom. So really, in one pasuk, this pasuk 14, chapter 19 of Bamidbar, book of Numbers, it says 3 times the word oil. Mimishkan, from the tabernacle covering that covered the Mishkan. There's a covering on the Mishkan. It says about this covering. Ksiva, it is written here regarding roof tuma. This is the law of a man who dies in a tent. And it is written there regarding the tabernacle covering, and he spread the tent upon the tabernacle covering. Just as there regarding the tabernacle covering cloth of flax, which was used in the covering, is called a tent. So too regarding roof tuma, cloth of flax is called a tent, and can therefore become tameh when used as a roof over a corpse. What do you mean? A question of a Pinchas. What does it mean? Not allowed to use a match. You mean a mat? What do you mean not allowed to use a match? So this is the end of this daf. We'll continue, God willing, tomorrow, and we'll learn soon halacha on Pesach. Halacha on Pesach from the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch. So stick with us. Pinchas, I wasn't sure what your question is. not allowed to use as a match.
Maybe even met the knot for the sukkah.
So we're not allowed to use the pishton as schach, as covering for the sukkah, because it's susceptible to tumah. Anything that is susceptible to tumah, we should not be using. Baruch tiyeh, bruchim tiyu, should all be blessed.